You know, these directors have really proven themselves with both these Bad Boys movies being much better than they have any right to be. Plus, they did a great job with Miss Marvel, having a superhero show on the small screen. I think it's about time that we give these guys a chance to direct a superhero story on the big screen instead. And, this movie does end with its climax being set in an abandoned amusement park, and that kind of reminded me of Birds of Prey. So maybe we give them something set in Gotham and kind of have similar themes of like the old school and the new school. Maybe have Batman be in the story, but maybe not make it about Batman. Maybe somebody who's looking up to Batman as some sort of mentor of sorts. I don't know. I think it could work. Maybe they can make it, have a lot of fun with it. Bring back some actors that you wouldn't expect to be in yet another DC movie, and hopefully it doesn't get written off for tax purposes. You never know. It could be great. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Bad Boys Ride or Die. This movie is once again directed by the duo of Adil and Bilall. This movie stars Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, Vanessa Hudgens, Alexander Ludwig, and Paola Núñez. And when Bad Boys for Life came out a couple years ago, I was entirely surprised by how much I enjoyed that film. And to be fully honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the original Bad Boys movies. I don't really like Michael Bay's style all that much, although, there is some good things in that, specifically with the duo of Martin Lawrence and Will Smith being as great as they were. And so you take that into a modern setting and have as good a directors as that last film had, it was a big surprise to me. And because of that previous film's both commercial and critical success, of course, we're going to be getting a sequel to that film with Bad Boys Ride or Die. And I also enjoyed this film quite a bit. I wouldn't say it's as good as Bad Boys for Life because I do really enjoy that movie. I think this movie does take a little bit of a step back in terms of story, but it does take a step forward in terms of the humor and the action. So I do want to get into spoilers for Bad Boys Ride or Die because there is a lot to talk about with this film. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a lot of fun. Come back here and let's talk about this movie. So what is this film about? Well, essentially it follows Mike and Marcus once again on an investigation to try to figure out who is framing Joe Pantoliano's character, Captain Howard, as working with the cartels for all these years. He's clearly being framed by somebody high up in the government, by these people that are super shady, that is kind of working in the shadows, that has ties to, the events of the last film with the cartels and Mike Lowrey's son. And so it is a continuation of that story, which I did enjoy quite a bit. And also when it comes to the Bad Boys movies, you're also going to have some fun banter with Mike and Marcus, and this time around it's kind of flipping the script with these characters, where instead of Mike being the daredevil of sorts, the one who's going to throw himself into the action, the one that's going to be fearless, this time Martin Lawrence's character gets to have fun and be the fearless character, while Will Smith is going to be playing the more, restrained and protective character in this film. And so it's a nice flipping of the script of these characters that we've loved for 4 films now. And first, let's talk about the things that I loved most about this movie, and that is clearly Martin Lawrence in this film. He's clearly on something else in this movie because he is the funniest he's really ever been in this film. He essentially has this storyline where he's no longer able to eat sugars or sweets or any of these things that is going to get his blood sugar up too high, and so throughout the entire movie he's constantly trying to get just a little bit of sweets. He's trying to either eat a hot dog with relish or get these Skittles, which great promotion for Skittles, I guess. Maybe I'll buy Skittles tomorrow. I don't know. If you're seeing this movie, get some Skittles before you go in there and you'll probably be happier watching this film. But either way, he wants to get these sweets, but he has a heart attack early on in this movie, and he essentially has this vision with Joe Pantoliano by this dead tree sticking out of the beach, and there's a parrot there that flies towards him, and he whispers something into his ear, and he sees his life flash before his eyes, and it's this weird thing where now he thinks that he is invincible because Joe Pantoliano's character said that it's not his time yet. And if the idea of a character in an action franchise having this thought that he is invincible sounds familiar to you, that's because this plotline is pretty much pulled directly from one of the Fast and Furious movies. I want to say it's Fast 9, the one where they go into space. But what makes this one better is it's not everybody who seems invincible. It's just Martin Lawrence's character who thinks he is invincible, which makes him do all these crazy things throughout this movie. And when you have Martin Lawrence, you have the comedy chops that he has, his timing and the lines that they give him. It is so entertaining to watch him essentially be the Mike Lowrey of this film. It was such a great idea. And so, of course, the chemistry between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith is going to be as strong as it has ever been in this franchise. And, like I said, since they did flip the script, Will Smith's character is going to be a little bit different this time around. At the very beginning of the film, he is being married to this character named Christine, who is a new introduction into this series. And he has now these responsibilities. In the last one, we found out that he had a son who was kind of the villain of that story. And now you have him in prison. So he has some sort of care and I guess this I guess, this need to kind of protect and to help his son, even though he has done all these terrible things in the past, and now he has a wife that he wants to also protect from, all these villains possibly going to, kidnap her and kind of being a damsel in distress in this film, unfortunately. But, you have this character that's having panic attacks now, that's being worried, like Martin Lawrence has been, of always, being the family man, and now Will Smith's character is the family man in this film, which is a nice change of pace for this character. And of course, by the time you get to the end of the film and Will Smith goes through his arc and he needs to be slapped in the face by Martin Lawrence a couple times and sing the Bad Boys song so they can go into the battlefield, just shooting bullets, just all going all out and having these epic action sequences by the end, and seeing both of these characters really have that confidence that's kind of Mike Lowrey has always had throughout the series was a really nice touch to see as well. And speaking of these action sequences, I think that this is easily where this movie absolutely thrives, when it mixes these crazy action sequences with the great comedy that you have with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence as this duo. This movie absolutely thrives with this sort of stuff. Every single action sequence in this movie, I think, is just a little bit better than all the action scenes in the last film. There's a great scene in like this bar that ends in them being in a van that's on fire. That was a pretty great action sequence, but really the one that is the clear highlight of this entire film is the action sequence at the very end of the film in this abandoned amusement park. And there's some great camera moves. I'll try to show some footage of the behind the scenes that Will Smith posted on his Instagram, but he essentially has this camera rig that is flipping back and forth, that he's kind of operating himself while he's performing, where it shows like the perspective of him looking down the barrel of the gun, and now it flips over, now you see his face and his like reactions of how he's going about this action sequence, and it flips between going from his gun to him throwing it to Martin Lawrence's character. It is really inventive and creative, and again, Adil and Bilall are great directors, and I think they did a great job in both these Bad Boys films, where I do want to watch their Batgirl movie. Please just release that thing, or maybe give him something new. But even with all that being said, I still think that there's one sequence in particular that was easily the highlight that got the biggest reaction out of the crowd that I saw this movie with tonight, and that is the scene with Reggie. And Reggie has been a character, I believe, since Bad Boys 2, I think is when he was introduced, and you have the great, I have my issues with Bad Boys 2 and the humor in that film and the Michael Bay that I really don't like, but the action scenes of that movie is really over the top and fun, and the scene where Martin Lawrence and Will Smith's character are kind of berating and kind of almost threatening, Martin Lawrence's daughter's new boyfriend, Reggie. I absolutely love that scene. I think it's very funny, and they did another throwback to that in the last film as well. And now you get a scene where, he's kind of sitting on the couch all day playing video games because he hasn't been deployed, or he just got back from war, and Martin Lawrence is joking that he needs to be deployed, or he needs to get a job. All that sort of jokes happening throughout this movie. But once, the bad guys are closing in and they're trying to kidnap Martin Lawrence's family, you have Reggie at home ready to just take all these guys out, and it is so incredible. What Adil and Bilall do really great in these action sequences is especially the movement of the camera and how it kind of whips past through all these characters. I believe they use a lot of drones in their films as well, which I think Michael Bay has started to experiment in films like Ambulance, but it does have that Bad Boys feel, which is a little bit more slick and clean because it's not Michael Bay, and so you have a little bit more clarity in these action sequences, and I think it does both honor the style of those old Bad Boys movies while also taking it into a new modern era with these films. I really love what they're doing with these films, and the drone shots, the perspective shots, and just everything going on in these action sequences, and the fact that it's Reggie doing all this stuff, and how the camera is moving in and out of the security footage, and you get the reactions from all the other characters watching this all happen on a monitor. All that stuff was really, really entertaining. And there's also the plane sequence. Like, I could really go on all day talking about all these action sequences. And another great thing that this movie did was have, Mike Lowrey's son play a big role in this film as well. I think they very easily could have moved past that storyline that was in the last film, but that's a really big reveal, and it's a really big, important part of this character's life, that he has now introduced himself to a son that has really gone down a dark path, that is now in jail because of all the brutal murders that he had done. He's a very, he's almost a lost cause at the end of that first film. Maybe he can improve himself in that last film, where he has that, post-credit scene where maybe he can help Mike Lowrey in some cases to be able to lower his sentence in prison. And so now you have this character teaming up with Mike Lowrey and Marcus in a way that kind of reminded me of Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom, with Aquaman and the Ocean Master, and how those characters kind of bonded throughout that movie. And you have the same thing with Will Smith and now his son in this film, that is also pretty entertaining to see. And this character also played a great part in these action sequences, especially the end action sequence and the plane scene, and the scene where he's really along the ride for this entire movie, which again, I think they easily could have ignored those aspects, but they brought all those characters back to also have fun in here. And you can honestly say the exact same thing about Vanessa Hudgens and Alexander Ludwig in this film, who were featured in the last film, and it could have been very easy for them to just not have been in this new film, like a lot of 90s movies did in the past, where, you know, they had their main stars and had their supporting cast, and in the sequel, they got rid of the supporting cast for a new one, but they kept their main stars. That happened all the time, and it could have very easily been the case with this film, but I'm glad to see them. And honestly, it's been a great weekend for original cast members of the Hunger Games, because of course you have Amanda Stenberg in The Acolyte, who played Rue in the Hunger Games, which if you haven't watched my Acolyte review, please watch it. YouTube hates when I do reviews for anything that's not, you know, movies, or reviews for anything that is Star Wars. It really does not like when I do that, so please go watch that video. But also now you have Alexander Ludwig, who played Cato in the original Hunger Games movies, now also playing a good role in here, and he also had some good comedic moments, and now they're in a relationship with Vanessa Hudgens' character, which plays a lot of funny moments in this movie as well. And so I like this new school and old school dynamic that was brought back in that last film now into this one. I think all that still tracks. But like I said at the top of the review, I didn't like this movie quite as much as Bad Boys for Life, mainly because I think the story does take a step back in this film. I just wasn't as engaged in the actual plot of this film, and I think this movie is a bit too convoluted. So let's go over the, I guess, convoluted nature of this story. Captain Howard is being framed by Eric Dane's character, who is the villain of this movie, and he essentially has a way to funnel a bunch of cartel money into some bank accounts under Captain Howard's name, which essentially does frame him to the FBI as, you know, working with the cartels after all these years. But of course you have Armando, who worked for the cartel, so he knows the truth. He knows that Joey Pants has nothing to do with this plot at all, and so in order to clear his name, we need this character to be alive. But in order to cut all ties and to clear all loose ends, the villain needs to now take out Armando, which leads us down this entire film. You also learn that Captain Howard wasn't originally on his hit list in that last film, and that's, you know, this Eric Dane guy is the one who kind of set the path to kill him in the last film, all with this, you know, several year plan to be able to, you know, have him be the scapegoat so he can now get away with, you know, doing all these crimes, working with the cartel, working in the government. And so that is essentially the main convoluted plot of this film. There's a lot more to it, but that's as much as I can explain. You have no idea how many takes I did to try to explain all that in one breath. It wasn't very easy. But then you also have all these subplots in this movie, which honestly I think if you take out any one of these, any singular one of these subplots, I think it could have made this entire film better. Maybe cut two subplots. I'll get into which subplots I'd probably cut from this film. You have the subplot, of course, with Marcus, who, you know, is obsessed with eating sweets, and then he dies, and then he has all these visions and thinks that he's invincible. All that stuff, I love it, keep it, it's very funny. Then you also have these subplots with, you know, Will Smith's character of him having this new wife and him having these panic attacks, and yes, it informs his arc throughout this movie to make, you know, that whole dynamic of these characters kind of flipping in terms of personalities in this film, which, okay, I get it, sure, you can keep that, but, you know, the subplots with his new wife, who is this character that we really learn absolutely nothing about, and she's really just there to be a damsel in distress. I think this is one of the elements that I just switch up a little bit, because you also have a subplot with the character Rhea from that last film, who was kind of hinted at being a potential love interest for Mike Lowrey in that last film, but no, of course, since Mike Lowrey has married this other woman, she is going to have this relationship with this Lockwood guy played by Reed Richards from the original Fantastic Four movies, which I thought it was him for a little while, and it wasn't confirmed to me until I saw the credits at the end, which it's nice to see him in a film. But now you have this subplot with them being in a relationship, and how this guy is running for, I think, mayor, and he's a politician. Of course, he's going to be the corrupt one that is also helping all these things be swept under the rug, and so now you have this subplot where this guy's a bad guy and that Rita's now in danger. I also think this subplot you probably could have taken out. Honestly, I think if you merge the Mike Lowrey storyline and this storyline and have maybe, you know, him marrying Rita's character instead of, you know, this new Christine character, I think that could have also bridged the gap with that last film a little bit better, and then you would have gotten rid of some of that, you know, side stuff with this Lockwood guy, which I didn't really care. He didn't really change anything besides being eaten by the alligator at the end of the film, which was great to see, but I don't think that character necessarily added to anything with this film, of him kind of being the, I guess, person on the inside giving all the information to the bad guys. I didn't really need that. And if we do condense these two subplots, I think it would have given a lot more time to go into the subplot of Ray Seehorn, who of course was phenomenal in Better Call Saul. I love that show and I love her in it. It's a shame she never won any awards for that performance, because she was truly great in that series. Now she plays a cop and the daughter of Captain Howard in this film, which I thought was interesting to see that she was at Mike Lowrey's wedding at the beginning of the movie, which honestly, I think if Mike Lowrey's son killed her father, I don't know if she would be at the wedding, because it's a whole entire subplot where she's mad with Mike Lowrey because of his son and because his son is able to escape in this movie. And she says if she ever sees him on the field that she's going to kill him, that she's going to wipe him out because, you know, he killed my father. And there's an important, I guess, subplot and character moments with this character being the daughter of one of the characters from the original films. All that stuff tries to make this character to be a lot more significant, but by the ending of this film, with this character kind of hunting them down throughout the entire time, and once you get to the end where she has Armando at gunpoint and her daughter is also there, and Armando just saved her daughter, and so that's the reason why she's eventually going to put her gun down. I think that moment would have landed a lot better if I cared and some more time was dedicated to this subplot. I think that is one thing that I was desperately wanting more of in this film, because it's an interesting idea. It's just the movie's too busy with all these other subplots. And so really, I think just simplifying this movie could have gone a very long way. But like I said, I did enjoy, of course, the chemistry between the leads of this film, the comedy and the action sequences, specifically with Adil and Bilall being great at kind of evolving their filmmaking style and becoming great filmmakers as these bad boy movies come out. I would honestly be really excited to see another film from these directors in this universe and having them all come back to kind of wrap up this trilogy of newer Bad Boys films. I would love to see all that, because I do think the potential of them all working together as a team is really strong. I think a lot of it does still work. Just maybe simplify the story just a little bit. It doesn't need to be super convoluted. You can have a simple story, a simple like revenge story, something a little more personal like you had in Bad Boys for Life, and be really great. And this film was just a little bit of a step down from being a great film for me, but it was still entertaining nonetheless. But now I'm going to pass it off to you guys. What did you think of Bad Boys Ride or Die? Did you enjoy it as much as I did, or did you get a little bit too tied into the convoluted nature of this plot for you to not enjoy this film? And honestly, I think if you're a fan, especially of that last Bad Boys movie and just the Bad Boys movies in general, I can't see you going into this movie and walking out disappointed. I think this is a really good crowd-pleasing movie, which the audience I watched it with was very clearly into this movie, even more so than I was. So definitely leave your comments down below of what you thought of this film. And if you did enjoy the video, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this one. Of course, I have reviews for In a Violent Nature and I Saw the TV Glow and The Acolyte. Please go watch my Acolyte review. I also will have a review out for The Watchers, which also comes out this weekend. I'm seeing it tomorrow. My review will also probably come out tomorrow as well, so I'm very excited to see that film, to see Shauna Night Shyamalan finally take the director's chair and make some weird, creepy horror movie that I'm very excited to watch as well. So, like I said, if you did enjoy the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you all in my next one.